Greetings, Kindred. I am Voivode Maquette, and welcome back to Our World of Darkness and Metaplot Monday, where today we're not going to be going over one of the lore sheets. Instead, we're going to be taking a look at the Salubri and their place in V5. This actually came about due to a request from the Best Guy 19 in our YouTube community. And it is really something that needs to be looked into, and I've actually put quite a bit of work into it since I decided to make this episode about this, because it really does seem like, yet again, the Cyclops have gotten the shaft. They have gotten shit on in almost every edition of Vampire the Masquerade. Even in the Dark Age editions of the game, it's set after Salat is diablerized by Tremere, and after the stigma of being a Salubri is put on the clan. There's very little information out there or settings out there where the Salubri are not considered anathema of some kind. They really have gotten they really have gotten the worst of it through everything, and V5 is no different. Now, we are not going to be getting into extreme details about their disciplines or anything like that, due to the fact that we will be covering that in the amalgam videos in not too long, but we will be overviewing details. I do want to go into what the book says about the Salubri, and that is the companion that was issued for free by Our World of Darkness not too long ago, which brought us the Salubri, the Ravno, and the Tzimisce back for player characters. And that book says, "The schemes of the Kindred yield winners and losers, and each winner demands a loser to pay the price for that success. Such is the case with the Salubri. Centuries ago, renowned for wisdom and erudition, but now little more than a despised footnote in the schemes of the damned. Tonight, the Salubri are, arguably, no longer even a clan. Their progenitor, so it is told, having succumbed to the fangs of a more ambitious usurper, who bolstered his own clan with that purloined blood. Theirs is a legacy of tragedy, but also a bitter lesson in the millennia spanning eternal struggle. For it is their destruction, those who overlooked them burdened with the reputation of the crime to whom they were the victim. As if to compound the recognition of this guilt, every Salubri bears a third eye in the center of their forehead, the indicator of their lineage." So this description of the Salubri is just a brief overview of everything that we know so far. That they were once considered a high clan, that the Tremere destroyed them, not just by devouring the soul of their antediluvian, and also various other members of their clan over time, but also socially. There was a smear campaign against this clan that completely just eradicated them. And with the way that the clan flaws and banes and everything are all compounded with this, it'd be hard to even play a Salubri if they were not considered an ill breed to have around. But as time goes by, it seems that the Salubri continue to go on as well. I love the fact that there are no archetypes for playing a Salubri in the companion. The fact that it actually says that there are too few Salubri to have archetypes is hilarious. Now getting on to that fact, when I first started playing, the Salubri were in fact one of their nicknames, the Unicorn. They're rare. You never saw them until you get into like the Sabat, and then you find out what you did know about the Salubri is completely untrue. The fact that there were only 7 in existence. And then when you get to the Gehenna novel that came out a few years ago, that is canon or isn't canon. It's not canon because it has to deal with the end of existence. V5 actually sets itself pretty well in that version of events, since all the elders are gone and stuff. But the idea, one of those 7 were actually killed in that book, making the loss of that healer Salubri that much more traumatic. The fact that they received a flare gun to the back of the head while having a conversation with Beckett was a little bit jarring. But then we think about the fact that there is a set of warrior Salubri, of Salubri anti-tribute, and are they really? I understand that most people think of Salubri as the healers, the paladins. They are there to make sure that we live and things like that. But in truth, Salat was a really messed up figure throughout history, and he pops up in the strangest places. But the fact is, he was ejected from the East. He didn't travel east and learn his powers from the Kwai-Jin or from whatever mystical spirituality that he got the third eye and learned Valoran from. He was removed from that area. He's also tied up in the creation of the Bali. That's nuts. I like to mention these books quite often, and I get mixed responses of, oh, I love those, or God, they're garbage. Trilogy of the Red Death books also has its own pre-Bali idea of infernal vampires that were created by Salat. In that book, or in that trilogy of books, the main antagonists in the storyline is a group of almost Methuselah level cultists who call upon hellfire itself to destroy whoever they perceive as enemies. And they were Salat's brood. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that Salat was at least one of the founders of the Bali clan. I do think that if they were to bring in something like Damonin into the game, it really should be amalgams that relate very similar to our Obeah and our Valoran gifts that you see for the Salubri. And that actually brings us to another topic that I wish to discuss, which is actually the Bane, or Banes of Clan Salubri, because even though there's not that many of them, it's so difficult to play them because of this. First off, the Salubri are hunted. That's the Bane, the Clan Bane. I always found it very interesting in the older systems that the curses, the Banes of the Kindred, were actually set upon by what Cain cursed them as, or at least as far as common Cainite lore went. But the Salubri did not have a Bane. They had a third eye on their forehead, which showed itself whenever they used level 3 or higher of their version of their power, be it Obeah or Valoran. But it didn't bleed or cause any problem. It glowed. It would give off a shimmer or a glowing. The healers would go blue. The warriors would glow red. And in games that I played in, we had the house rule of if you knew both of them, they would kind of swirl, almost like a yin-yang thing. Like you've reached a level of practice where you've found balance in both warrior and healer. But in V5, the other clans are especially appreciative of the Salubri Vitae. They're delicious. Their flaw, their bane, is that their blood is delicious. Now, I have a feeling that this has a lot to do as a carryover when it came to the older systems where the Salubri actually got extra points in generation at character creation, basically making it so that if you did build a character and you put all of your points towards generation, you can come in as like an 8th gen, as an elder. But if you started at 13th gen, you put 3 points in, making you 10th gen, you got those 2 extra points that could actually make you an elder. Which, considering the fact that the Salubri were so rare and that the children of a Salubri are said to diablerize the sire, then it makes sense that that is available to them. That most of them are going to have a pretty easy time diablerizing their sire, considering the fact that their sire was raising them to diablerize them. But now in V5, it's consuming enough blood from a Salubri to abate one hunger causes any kindred to have a difficulty 2 frenzy check just by consuming the blood. If you're playing Banu Hakim, it's +3. That's ridiculous, especially given the fact that there was, in the older versions, a branch of Salubri who specifically worked with the Banu Hakim. It's just, I don't know, they've gone through some very interesting things. I don't actually have a problem with this, but that is harsh. Especially when you take into consideration that if they use any disciplines, in the companion it states any discipline, their third eye bleeds, causing any kindred in the room who are at a hunger of 4 to have to throw a frenzy check. That stinks. But this is where my confusion comes in. Is it any discipline, as the book states? In fact, I'll read it verbatim. It says, anytime a Salubri activates a discipline power, the third eye weeps vitae, its intensity correlating to the level of the discipline being used, from welling up to a torrential flow. Suck. Now, the other day I was lucky enough to be able to sit down and finally watch the a roleplay VTM companion special hosted by Brian Holland of World of Darkness. Josephine McAdam, Critical Bard, and Outstar all played characters in this. Outstar played as Amitzi, Critical Bard played the Ravno, and Josephine McAdam played the Death Surgeon Salubri, which was freaking amazing. And watching them play that, hosted as a World of Darkness special, was actually a fundraiser. Only the disciplines that are amalgams for the Salubri are what caused her eyes to bleed. Now, I think that is the ruling that I would do, because truthfully, when you stop and think about it, Salubri have Auspex, Fortitude, and Dominate, and when it comes to Auspex and Fortitude, some of those disciplines are automatically active. They have no cost, and therefore that means that if a Salubri gets punched in the face, their eye is just going to start gushing blood. If their Fortitude kicks on, that seems a little bit nuts to me. Maybe if it had been stated every time a Salubri rouse checks to activate a discipline, then maybe I would say sure. But and maybe if they fail the rouse check, the lost blood doesn't get consumed in their body, it just gets forced out of their eye. That would be also acceptable. But I do really enjoy the way that Brian Holland ran it, so that it was only the amalgams that pertain to the Salubri clan that caused the eye to well up and bleed. And some of it was just downright hilarious, because towards the beginning, when Josephine started portraying her character using Obeah, there was a small little trickle of blood that kind of ran down her face, and it was fine because that's a level 2 amalgam Fortitude 1 Auspex 2 power that worked really well with the idea of it being a low level. But then when she turned around and used Valoran, which again is another level 2 power, her eye exploded. And she's just like trying to run around and do stuff while her eye is just like pouring out blood, trying to clean up while she's running around trying to do stuff. It was hilarious, and it was very, it was traumatic, while I couldn't stop laughing at the exact same. It got me thinking about if I decided to run some kind of What We Do in the Shadows type comedic vampire game, that a Salubri would have to be there just to see that like water, that like blood spout out of the top of the head. That was just so much fun. And I was thinking about ways to handle it and how you do it. One of my players, Daviga31, who stereotypically plays Tremere, but he's currently playing our dear Zemitzi Tommy. He said that he would get a backpack with a shot vac in it and take one of the medical breathing masks and attach that to the end, and whenever he knew he was going to use his disciplines, he'd stick it to his forehead and turn it on high before doing anything, and then put a camelback straw from that going back so he could just re-drink it and just recycle things as it was going. And that was probably the best idea I had ever heard, as ridiculous as that sounds. But the idea is that we have Auspex level 2 Obeah, which is a Fortitude 1 amalgam. And then you have Fortitude level 2, which is an Auspex 1 amalgam. And then, after that, you also have Unburdening the Bestial Soul, which is another Obeah style discipline. In fact, one of the prerequisites of it is Obeah. So we technically have 2 level 2s and a level 5. But if you do look at, and I know I'm starting to get a little bit close into detail on this one, we do have a Fortitude 1 and an Auspex 1, a level 2, a level 2. It's nuts, but it seems to me like we might be able to cut these a little bit down. Perhaps maybe if you're using Obeah or Valoran, you do have the slight trickle of blood, like a crying, weeping kind of thing. Maybe it wells up. And then when you use Unburdening the Bestial Soul, that's when you can get that full torrential spout from the head. And I don't know, I think that works a lot better than the idea that all disciplines cause the Salubri to do that. But where exactly do the Salubri fit in the V5 setting? We do know from previous editions that the Banu Hakim had allies with the Salubri. We know that the Tremere are in a bad place right now, due to the fact that thaumaturgy has taken such a hit, and socially they have dropped downhill. I don't see that being portrayed very often, but in my opinion, most cities don't even have chantries any longer. The elders of Clan Tremere have pretty much all backed off and are reclusive and are, this is my power, I'm not sharing it with you. So most characters in Vampire the Masquerade in a 5th edition game are going to end up having just that path of blood. Now, there are rituals that are starting to be expanded. I know a lot of storytellers are taking into consideration that older versions of thaumaturgy work well, but how are the characters getting it? In my opinion, it would take whole story arcs for them to be able to start practicing a new path. That they would have to find places to go. And the Tremere elders, what are left of the pyramid, are not even allowing Kindred to go into Vienna to try to find artifacts and tomes that were lost during the attack. I'm not saying that it's not possible to get more thaumaturgy, but it is something that really needs to be taken into account, that this is going to be difficult, and that whole story arcs could be based on just trying to gather Movement of the Mind or Lure of Flames. And that most Tremere are just out of luck. And the Tremere that get a hold of those things, are they going to want to share? Is it going to cause more problems? Who's responsible? I love the fact that House Karna seems to be all about allowing people to practice magic because they love it. And I also see House Karna not accepting the way that the hierarchy, pyramid, treated their old enemies. And between the Banu Hakim joining the Camarilla and House Karna still playing an active role in the Camarilla, at least for the time being, I do not see it as utterly impossible for Salubri to make their way into the common courts of the Camarilla Elysium. because those propaganda smear campaigns that the Tremere hosted are going to be contested by the Vizier Banu Hakim, who are now members of Camarilla courts and are holding more prestigious titles than Clan Tremere. So yeah, I do in fact see a place for Clan Salubri. And it might even be a curiosity of some of these younger princes out there who would tell them, yes, you can join us if you make 3 more of your kind. You're going to start getting stupider decisions with stupider princes. And that's it. And the idea, I don't think mass embraces are going to come about, but I do think that the idea that Kindred would be helping the Salubri, now that the Tremere are kind of put in their place, is more likely to happen. Now, where are the mentalities of those Salubri? I like the way that these disciplines work, and I've heard a lot of people say they do not like it. And again, trying really, really hard not to go too far in this, because I don't want to go and double up information here, but Obeah says a vampire soothes the mental or emotional turmoil of their subject, restoring them to a modicum of steadfastness. It is especially effective when used on mortals, either to help them through momentary agitation or to calm them before feeding on them. I can see vampires of the Salubri clan heading to AA meetings and trauma meetings, group therapy kind of things, and going and just using it. Just to calm them down, to make themselves feel better, to make the Salubri feel like they're helping. But you know what I see when I see that? Not dealing with your shit. I see the Salubri slowly, if used on a person enough times, turning them into a complete and utter sociopath. This kind of thing, this use of Obeah is going to turn them into a void resonance, making it easier for things like La Sombra and stuff to feed on them. But the fact is, they're making it so that people cannot deal with their stresses the way they need to. They're making them ignore them. They're not healing anything. So, where higher levels, or I should say different levels, Valoran and Unburdening the Bestial Soul seem to be more focused on Kindred as targets. But Obeah seems like something where it may make the Salubri feel better. It may make the target feel better. A little bit at a time. But I see that as taking away the person's ability to heal. This isn't a cure for the human. This is damning them to not being able to cope with things on their own. And I don't think Salubri are as much as the good guys as you can think. Now, where having Valoran might be useful in combat for Kindred, being able to mend, to project your fortitude towards somebody else, just at the thought, and unburdening the soul, you gain a stain from that. I believe that the Salubri are a lot darker in V5 than they have ever been. And the best part is they don't have to ask permission to feed anymore. That was always horrendous for me. I always hated the concept of the vampire who has to ask to do it. Now, there's the consensualist, and I can see a lot of Salubri taking consensualists as a feeding type. And that may have been the way things were in the past. But now, you can play a downright dirty, evil, monstrous Salubri who uses Obeah to calm their victims to feed from, who uses Valoran to heal those that they want to keep on their side, and to take the stains away from people who have earned them, so that they themselves can acknowledge the darkness that they're enjoying. You can play a bad guy Salubri. That's so much fun. I've always wanted to do that. I wanted to play an infernal Salubri. I just thought that would be so much fun. I had an NPC at one point when I ran Thicker Than Water a decade ago. And the NPC was a Salubri who lived on the mountain, and he seemed like the classical Salubri who was helping vampires learn Golconda. And completely honest here, that's exactly what he was doing. But he wasn't doing it out of the goodness of their heart. He wanted to diablerize them when they hit Golconda. And that was his whole thing, is he enjoyed diablerizing vampires who were pure of soul. He was an evil monster. And I fudged the rules, but here I can follow them. And I love that. I love the fact that I could very well, if I wanted to, not telling anybody because I know my players watch this, I could very well bring a Salubri into game whose intention was to coach you into Golconda and then decide that you're food after that point. You can play a bad guy. Now, would I like to see more warrior aspects of this? Yes. And I'm probably going to end up homebrewing my own versions, where I'm going to take levels of Valoran, the warrior type Salubri power, and try to create them in V5. And when I do, those right there will end up being vampire bites. I will share those with you because I think I can come up with some good ones. The idea of using Dominate and Fortitude as an amalgam to cause somebody to feel pain, or Aspects and Dominate to make somebody feel pain. That seems possible here because that's the disciplines they have, and that will work. I'm excited to work on this, and I would like to see what other people are also working on when it comes to the Salubri. Have you done anything that makes the Salubri worth playing for you? How are you playing them? Are you playing them straight out of the companion where every discipline is causing them to bleed profusely from the head? Are you playing it so that if somebody steps on your Salubri's foot and Fortitude actually kicks in, you start squirting at the forehead? Because that would suck. And if you're doing that, I commend you on trying to keep up with the book rules on that one. It does seem to me, when I watched Wedding Night, which was the name of that World of Darkness hosted one-shot showing you how to play these clans, that they made it so that only the amalgams cause them to bleed from their eye. I don't know if that was thought about later on, or if they just decided this would work better for that game session. But I think that's what I'm going to do with mine, is if you use an Obeah Valoran power amalgam, then your eye is going to bleed. And I do plan on homebrewing more Obeah and more Valoran as amalgams, so that players in my game can choose to play a Salubri that at least resembles the Salubri from the older systems while keeping the grit and dirtiness of what we have here. Because I'm serious, I love Obeah as an amalgam here. I love the fact that it just stops the human from caring about what's going on with them. That over the course of time, it will cause problems. Salubri are inadvertently evil, which sometimes can be the worst kind. Because if they're trying to help, but causing more problems than they're actually fixing, that can be a lot of fun. So yes, that is my mindset. I believe that the Salubri could fit in very well in a Camarilla setting. I don't see the Salubri getting along in the Anarchs now that the Ministry is now put into it. Now that the Ministry is that. And I can also see Warrior type Salubri, which is 100% possible to play in this game. Because what did the Warrior Salubri have in the old systems? Auspex, Fortitude, Valoran. They just now have Dominate And these disciplines can be used as ways of helping Sabat as well. Obeya, making humans not care that they're being taken. That works very well. Unburdening the bestial soul is probably a good thing to use on new recruits into the Sabat, so they don't fall to wassail, so they don't fall to the beast completely before you can get them on a path. Because going on to a path of enlightenment should take weeks, if not months, maybe years of brainwashing trials, and having somebody who can take those stains back and make them not care is helpful. And also having somebody who can mend your bones from a distance, having that paladin in battle, is always something useful. And since they don't have to acknowledge themselves as Salubri in the Sabat, well, fun. Doesn't matter anymore. But that is my take on V5 Salubri. I'm very interested in yours. I do want you to share with me everything that you think. I want to thank the Best Guy 19 for such a fruitful topic. And I'm sorry this is coming out a little bit late. My internet went down for a couple days, and I didn't have the ability to do this until Monday when it was supposed to be out. So I will get this up and going and out ASAP. Should be out in a few, and hopefully it's not too bad. But I am Voivode McCats. This is our world of darkness. And thank you for joining me at this discussion of Clan Salubri and where they fit into the world of Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition. I look forward to hearing from all of you. Good evening.